make sense of is the power is with the community, but before the community can actually make use of that power, they need to go through the government to get that power. So how would you say they are really in control of the biodiversity when they go through the government? This is why I think the power should be with my group for today, which is research and academics. It is a very important site. There is no other place like Sumatra in the world. There is only one Sumatra. So why should one single stakeholder or one single entity hold it? My reasoning behind having the academics and research stakeholders hold it is because they can do the basics when it comes to the approaches needed to manage those biodiversity. They can monitor, they can design policies. Which other groups can do that? Yes, please.
I think that while the research and the academics are important, the community is on the ground. They've lived there for a while, and so you guys may not be there all year round, while they will be. They also can play a part in monitoring and being on the ground and seeing what's happening.
Yes, let me know what you think, Tyler.
I also worry that academics being solely in control would be counterproductive to protecting biodiversity. Because in cases like Madagascar, what you see is when all these areas are protected and we aren't allowed to go in there to harvest or hunt, it can't be controlled and it happens anyway. So it'll lead to more poaching if we aren't allowed to work with you guys and design a program that we could provide for ourselves and protect the animals.
So are you trying to say you want to co-own this biodiversity site with researchers, or you just don't want the researchers to own it?
We would like ownership. We're looking more for guidance and help with monitoring and help with creating policy.
Where myself, Tyler, and I believe Kim's trying to get at is, although the academics, they have the capacity to manage it, they do not have all the resources they need to do it effectively. That's a valid point. Kendall?
I forgot.
You forgot? Okay. That's all right. Is there any of these ideas in contention here? None. Yes, go ahead.
Basically, I think the private sector should have access to the land.
So what would the private sector do differently from what is being proposed at the moment?
Basically, this is hard to explain without sounding like a whole human being. But basically, I think that we would have we would have stakeholders present from the community and from the government, from the scholars and researchers present when we go to make the plant homo preserves, but that we would have the final say because we're the ones that have, at least currently have the land rights and land access.
What do we think? Yes. Go ahead, Tyler.
Doesn't the government have most of the land right access? They're giving out permits for certain parts, but they still control.
Some of the private sector don't have any right or land access, so they're illegally farming.
Are we representing the illegal stuff too?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Cool.
I think we are gearing up for an exciting conversation, so let's cut the chase. How should Sumatra biodiversity be managed? From what we have learned all semester long, and from what you've read on your own, how should the biodiversity in Sumatra be managed? What do you think can be done uniquely from what is being done as we heard from the podcast? Let me start from you guys.
Did you have something to say? I said very careful. Yeah, definitely very carefully. And then also sustainable use of the forest resources. And we think that alternative livelihoods should be offered, or at least a transition away from large plantations, maybe to like agroforestry or smaller smaller farms for palm oil. And if some of those I don't remember, but like if some of those palm oil plantations are owned from like outsiders, maybe moving away from that, if they can have another livelihood, but people who live there may still need that livelihood. And being able to have like non-timber forest products, and like establishing rights for this certain groups.
So if someone from the private corporation walks up to your group now and say, okay, what would you call the name of that management system?
Co-management.
Co-management. Where's the government? Is it going to be co-managed with the government or co-managed with other groups represented here?
I feel like we kind of want to co-manage with all the groups.
Okay. Can you explain more?
Because like, I think we would like to also, we want to work with the people, but we also want to work with the for-profit works to become more sustainable. I think, right? Is that what we're getting at?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll continue that conversation, but what do you guys think? Do you guys want to work with them?
I think we're maybe willing to work, depending.
Maybe.
I think the community would be willing to work as long as we retain our access to the land to get like the food we need and all that kind of stuff, the resources we need from the area. They can't just completely shut us out like they've done in other conservation places like in Africa.
Okay, let's be very cautious when we manage these resources, because names also matters. For instance, if someone out of this class calls me Martin, I will not answer. Or someone calls me John, I will not answer, because it's not my name. So when you name something, you're basically defining a clear path to which some actions can be taken. All right? So if you come up with a system like that, don't be conservative. Don't be conservative, because I sense you're being conservative and trying to tie it into what we've talked about in class. How about you come up with a unique definition or a unique management name? Something like livelihood security-based biodiversity management. How do you think the names of all of these systems that we have today come into existence? Someone like you and I coined them, and over time they were relevant. Because I see what you're talking about as being very valid and different from co-management. Now, co-management, the government provided resources while the community on the ground does the job. But the suggestions you're coming up with is, let us come up with a system where we are just managing the biodiversity based on livelihood. If you need biodiversity, you go in and collect. Only what you need, not what you want. So you can't conveniently call it a livelihood security based biodiversity management system. Okay? But I have a further question. I also think this particular site that we're talking about shouldn't be managed by one stakeholder group alone. So I see some credibility in that, but it can also be problematic, especially when it involves the private corporation. They want to exploit the environment and make money from it. If you prevent it, they will do it illegally, as they are doing at the moment. So also pay attention to whatever relationships you're trying to build to manage it, because at the end of the day, it might end up becoming exploitative. Probably we'll meet just time. You have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to shed a touch base with government.
Okay.
I feel like something we can both agree with is really cracking down on illegal poaching and illegal palm oil farms. So
I think we would need help from the community though as well, because, I mean, the government, yes, we have to enforce everything, but also people have to pipe up and say, hey, this is going on. They have to notify people.
Yes, Ed. Hi.
To issue with that is, as stated in the podcast, you guys have worked with the people before, and then it just didn't work. It just went through, like, didn't it say like they made a thing like not to build roads, and then they went ahead with building all of the roads, which contributed to the deforestation. So obviously more advocacy needs to be done, especially as mentioned by like us, for like all of that building to like either not go through or to be done more sustainably or to prevent deforestation and stuff like that, because clearly whatever's happening right now is not working.
Okay, now let's talk about our rights. You want to react to that?
Oh, yeah,
Before we
I just
talk about
wanted to react to it.
our rights.
I feel like the road development thing was more because the government had an incentive to build roads because it would make you guys money in the short term, whereas I think going after illegal plantations is something that both of us have incentive for and like no decentives for, because it's losing you guys money, it's losing us our home.
What can we do better? Because the government cannot say they are not gonna make roads anymore. Just
I think a civilian climate corps would work, like in tandem with the government for regulations, and then we would ask like to be armed because a lot of these poachers are armed.
well, I think the government is not doing what they are supposed to be doing on ground at the moment. They are more interested in making money out of the situation, and whatever they do with that money, they already complain from the NGOs about you guys not using the money right. And of course, that may not be far from the reason why community members are actually engaged in illegal activities. Because when they cannot fend for themselves, they know there are some resources over there. Some of them might want to exploit it. Government is always here. The people is always here. How about we bridge that gap by making the people the government? By making the people the government. When people complain a lot, give them the power and step back. At least that's what I would do. For instance, if I am the chair of our department and things are not going well, and I'm getting feedback from students, from faculty members, I'm expected to take a step back and allow new leadership come in to switch things up. But we don't get to see that most of the time, because remember, natural resources are connected to national security. So nobody wants to lose that national security. That strong goal that they have, they don't want to lose it. Because the very moment you lose it, you might not get it back. Okay, let's try to map the relationship within this particular site. For the rights, let's look at who is the primary, secondary, and tertiary stakeholders in this conversation. Let's start with the community. Where do you guys belong and why? Is it your right to be primary, secondary, or tertiary?
I would say we're primary stakeholders because the environment in Sumatra like directly affects us, and we have a really big, or we should have a really big say in how the biodiversity is managed.
How has the expression of these rights benefited your stakeholder group?
With increased like levels of biodiversity, we just have like better ecosystems, healthier ecosystems, better land. There's not like our forests getting taken over for like palm oil. Anybody has anything to add?
Yeah, we're relying on the forest for water security as well.
Okay. Is anyone contesting their rights as primary stakeholders for this natural resource? Yes, please.
I mean, at least for the legal operations, I think we should have the primary stakeholder role because it's the land that.
Are you admitting to some illegal activities? The government is right there.
I guess, yeah. I don't know, like, so like, yeah, the land is legally being used. I think we have the primary rights to use what been deeded to us. As far as the legal stuff, I don't really know. I mean, as the private industry, like, I guess we would say that we deserve primary, but I don't know how we'd argue that because it's illegal.
Do we agree with that? No.
Actually, I think it's perfect.
Why do you think so?
Well, I don't know, I don't have a good point.
Okay. Just that we don't want the private corporations to be the primary stakeholder in this case. That's valid. Sometimes you want something to happen without solid explanation for it. Tyler, you want to help us?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that in the case of like these corporations, it's not a matter of life or death, it's like a matter of profit loss, which I feel separates them from being a primary stakeholder.
Good.
You have to make money to live.
You can do it somewhere else.
I could be wrong, but I feel like the government would be a primary stakeholder as well. I mean, just because we're enforcing it, I mean,
Okay.
we're also kind of exploiting it ourselves, I guess, with the private corporations, and then, I mean, the community's kind of exploiting it as well. So I think we're all kind of in the same boat here.
Okay. Is that acceptable to everyone? We have one question mark at the moment. The private corporations are still holding their ground, that they are a primary stakeholder in this conversation. And without any strong rebuttal, I'm going to keep them as a primary stakeholder. Okay, I'll come to you, Leah.
Of me?
Yes, please.
Well, they're outsiders, and outsiders normally don't know what's best, and when their feet are on the ground, and it's not directly affecting them, and they know the palm oil plantations, but they don't know the forest, the ecosystem, and all the biodiversity.
Okay, I'll let you guys react. Leah?
Yeah, I agree with that, and also I just wanted to say they should only be primary stakeholders for the land that they currently own. And any
Yes.
other land
As a new
that they
perspective.
want to do, that they want access to, they don't have any right now because they don't own it. It's owned by the government or the people, the community, and it's protected, so.
What do you guys think? Is that fine?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much impossible to argue to have a stake in the land you don't own. I don't know if I have some. So I think that's fine. But I do still think like our corporation still has boots on the ground. Like, and we're affected by the environment. Like, if the environment's gone, we can't grow, we can't build the dams and the roads and whatever else we need to do. So I think we are still affected, maybe in a different way, but it's directly affecting like our
Okay.
livelihood.
Two of you, then we'll move on.
I feel like the setup should be primary stakeholders, secondary stakeholders for the government, and then third for NGOs, right? Okay. And you don't have any feet because you're not legally allowed to be doing what you're doing, and you're just causing harm. So I don't think you have any say in the top three.
Some of it's legal.
So
They have some
But you're causing damages. And
Do you
only
know why
some-
it is technically correct? It is technically correct because you define your rights based on how much the management influences you, whether it is direct as a primary or whether it is indirect as secondary, whether it is optional, then it is tertiary. So I think there's a valid point in that. Now let me try to confuse you guys. How about my own group, academics and researchers? I would like, yes please.
I feel like you would also be involved because, like, if the community, because the government hasn't been doing everything that they need to be doing for us as a community, and you could work with the researchers and the NGOs to help us make them do what they're supposed to do
Good.
and make it stricter.
Secondary. That makes academics and researchers secondary. Is that, yes Tyler?
I would argue that academics could be primary stakeholders because Sumatra is such a unique environment that it has such significant academic value.
Good, that was my point earlier, but a lot of you are trying to confuse me otherwise. Yes.
I would also argue government is primary because it's land in their country that they control, and so they have the final say in everything pretty much. Who gets to own it, who gets access to it.
No, you're right.
Any final thoughts
But
before we lay this particular part to rest? Nora?
No, it was just, sounds like everybody needs it, so.
What if we say everyone has a direct connection to this natural resource and everyone is a primary stakeholder?
I don't like that either.
Yes. No one is gonna like that either. But for this biodiversity, this is how I see it. I have the room, you have the bed. Can we sleep together on it? That's how I see it. There is no way one particular stakeholder, sorry about the illustrations, my head is just but it makes sense because you might have a claim to the land, just like the community is doing at the moment, just like the government is doing at the moment. But these guys over here, they also have claims. They might be sponsoring the government to make the roads. They might also be engaged in illegal poaching activities, illegal planting activities. That is also valid for them. At least we all agreed at some point that that land that they manage at the moment, let them be the primary stakeholders in it. Yes, please.
Can I argue that we should also be primary stakeholders in their lands because their land affects the land as a whole? Like if the forest isn't connected, then like animal species die trying to cross their land or they get caught in snares.
Do you agree?
No.
No. Then we're back to square one. Because they are welcoming you into their land,
But it's not their land.
it is their land because they are primary stakeholders.
But now,
So we want to manage it together. We want to manage it together. So we are opening the door to say, come in. Come and take a look at what we have. Are you also going to open the door for us to come take a look at what you have? Yes, Kenny.
I was gonna say, like, even if they don't technically own your land, at least like the government should be there to enforce what you're doing, because some of it is illegal. But also like when you're doing something on your land, it's more likely that it's gonna happen in surrounding lands. Like if people are seeing you guys doing these illegal activities, it's more likely for more illegal activities to occur.
What do we think? That's doable?
I think it's doable, but not preferable.
Okay. It is never going to be preferable for any stakeholder group when you have these forums. You just have to sacrifice. You have to find a common ground. If not, we'll all leave the rooms with frowns on our faces. Okay, the common ground that we have at the moment is that all of us are primary stakeholders, all of us are secondary stakeholders, and all of us are tertiary stakeholders. If someone out of this class asks you as a manager for Sumatra biodiversity systems, why are you adopting that approach? Kindly tell them that those biodiversity in Sumatra are unique and cannot be found anywhere else. So no one stakeholder group should be very comfortable in managing it. If not, you're just opening the door to conflict. It is too unique for the government to take care of. Too unique for the NGO and for the researchers to be the primary custodian. Ditto for the corporations and the community. Does that sit well with everyone? Number 2, responsibility. What's your responsibility, the NGO?
I said, help protect the lands from unsustainable palm oil plantations and deforestation, help maintain more sustainable projects on the island, and maintain conversations between people, government, for-profit organizations, and resource groups.
That's very spot on. So who is preventing you from executing your responsibilities? Is there any stakeholder here that's preventing you from doing that?
Yeah, probably maybe the private sector. But also maybe like the government helping us give more power to the people and actually create these laws to be enforced. And then yeah, the private sector like encroaching on the good and sustainable things that we want to do.
That makes it more meaningful. Does that sit well with everyone? Okay, the government. What are your relationships? Or your responsibilities rather, they're not our relationships yet. Responsibilities.
Manage the territory sustainably, but while also authorizing developmental projects like oil plantations and energy.
Can development take place when we are managing biodiversity and the environment? I saw some ends like this. I saw very few ends like this. You are SD majors. Tyler, hold your thoughts. I want to hear from someone else. Tyler is stealing all the spotlight in class.
Can you
Other
restate
persons?
that question?
Okay. How can we pursue national development? Because all of these things we're talking about Sumatra, it's all about creating a balance. Manage this unique biodiversity and let them develop. So my question, that's what the government want to do. But my question is, can we pursue development and still manage our biodiversity sustainably? Can we do both of them at the same rate? How?
I think education is very important. I think it starts with the academics and NGOs and educating the government as well as the community on how to do that sustainably. Just because a lot of times people don't have those ideas in those kinds of areas, and so it takes outside information to come in and talk to people and educate them about that.
Besides education, what else would work? Because I want to argue, yes, I know, probably you're expecting me to say that. I want to argue that the worst things I've seen people do on earth, the worst things I've seen people do on earth were done by educated people. I've seen an educated grown man pull down their pants and do the nasty on the road. Yeah. So, yeah, education cuts it, but what is that but? What is that but? Where can we find that common ground? I don't want the quick fix to be education. The way education is set up at the moment here in America is not going to fix our problems. Maybe in other parts of the world where they have informal and formal education, it might work. But in America, it is mainly formal. So you got to come to college, you got to be in class to learn most of these things. So how can SD happen and yet Sumatra biodiversity protected? Tyler, let me hear you now.
So I had two ideas. They kind of touched on this in the podcast, but right now they're putting a lot of their energy demands on hydropower instead of solar. But I think solar would work a lot better and cause a lot less biodiversity loss. Like you could set up solar microgrids in these places. And then Kaylee kind of touched on this, but agroforestry in these palm oil plantations, it would make them more like a biological corridor if you had trees that were providing for the animals and not just for profit.
I got what you did there, and I will explain it a bit. Kelly?
Yeah, I think it's about developing in the right and maybe what's the right way, and having laws to make sure that people aren't developing outside a certain way. Roads may necessarily not, they may be needed sometimes. If they're just being used for plantations, it's not really needed, but maybe for communities to go from place to place, and also where you're putting these roads, and Tyler said, using solar power, and yeah, I think just more regulations on what the development is, and maybe clear plans of how you're going to be more sustainable with your development.
What she said. Development is very subjective. I want to hear what you think as well.
So I think it has to go in multiple different directions because it always depends on where you are and who you're working with. Because yeah, they might need roads to go to the oil, but we also, everyone's seen our roads in Boone and all the potholes and how shitty they're done and how everything gets repaved. This is a tangent, I'm sorry. But you can work with the local and the community and find ways to build things better that aren't the asphalt. There are much better ways to make roads that last so much longer and don't erode and don't break. And you have to talk to people and you have to be educated, but you also need to know what kind of what's in the soil there and how does it work and can it break down the things that are working here but aren't going to work here. They're just, you need to work with so many different people in order to make things sustainably. And having regulations is really good, but the regulations that work here aren't going to work here. And that's something I feel we don't ever, it's always a problem is they're doing it really good over here and it looks like this and it's great, and then you take it over here and it doesn't work. Yes. And nobody considers that. Anyway.
I hope that makes a lot of sense to you guys, just the way it did to me. in summary, what the three of them said is spot on. Let me summarize it. Now, depending on the part of the world you go to, what matters to them as development is different. That's the subjectivity you see in all the response. When you narrow it down to energy, when you narrow it down to roads, that's the subjectivity. So what does development mean to them in Sumatra? That's the first question. Then to make both of them work side by side, as you all said, it has to be intentionally low impact on a need basis. If you go to my village, we don't have lights. Yeah, you can laugh at me, but anytime I go there, I have the best life. I eat right from the farm, I drink right from the stream, I can actually breathe air, not struggle to breathe. But if you go into the room where we live, no power. Now they started bringing in power, but is it needed? Because these are going to come with poles, and these poles are going to change things, especially down the road if you want to make it a scenic natural resource. It's impossible to do that with all of the modifications we're going to do. So low impact development, which we talked about class, on a need basis. Do we need the road? If we do, yes. If we don't do it. That's how all of the sustainable development education, that's where it is directed to. Yes?
I was just thinking about some like practices are inherently sustainable, like just like natural foraging for supplies and resources and whatnot. I remember we talked about it in like your 2016 class. There was like in like China somewhere they assigned like a designated area where they needed to get fuel wood from.
Yeah.
But that land was like degraded within months. But like when they were just kind of going and randomly taking it, it allowed time for regeneration of that growth. And like I don't know what I'm getting at, but I know it was there in the beginning when I was thinking about it.
Yes, I know where you're getting at. Basically, populist culture is bad. Once everyone starts loving these jeans I'm putting on, most likely as a sustainable development professor, I'll stop putting it on. Because what this means is that the resource with which they use in making this is going to be under threat unless someone redirects them away from it. Does that make sense? Enough of this spiral. Let's come back to class. Okay? Thank you very much for that response. That's what led to all of this. Okay? What's your responsibility, guys?
I think we have the responsibility to like survive for both the local and like the country economy, and to ensure that it
Are you
grows.
sure it's not for your own stomach economy?
No. Yeah, I mean, you know, like taxes and stuff.
Okay.
I do think we also have a responsibility, like, to profit and to grow in a way that doesn't, like, inherently destroy ecosystems and human and natural environments. I think we have a responsibility to do that in a manner that, like, is feasible for the future.
Okay. Just to add to the mix as well, part of government responsibility is to collect tax on the land, to collect levies on the land, and to also put in some regulations on the land as well. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, don't you guys think it should be your responsibility to manage the land so that you won't end up destroying it before you can milk it all for what it's worth?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have to figure out what exactly, like, managing it means and how feasible that is. Like, there's a happy medium in there where like, we can still profit and make money, also just sustainably. And it's also like a place where we do it sustainably and then our company isn't around anymore. So I think as long as like it makes sense, yeah, I think it's a reasonable thing to do.
Okay, before we move on, is any stakeholder group preventing you from fulfilling your responsibilities? And what specifically?
Does anybody else want to?
Probably the local community. Like they're our biggest driver, and obviously their outrage for us conducting business here. Anything else?
What do you want from them?
What do we want from them? To not stand on our toes, I guess, in the sense of they can have a say, but at the same time, it's like you guys need to speak more of the government than the industry. I mean, if government really cranks down, then industry will eventually leave. That's just how it is, in my opinion.
Yes, you want to defend yourself? Okay.
Would you mind if we just like, set up, camp in your backyard and start growing a bunch of trees and, just post it up there forever. And eventually we just surrounded your house with like production and,
What kind of production?
I don't know.
Well, we definitely get the
It's hard
government
to
involved. You're
say.
treading on.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's hard to say. Whatever we can do.
Oh, you'll
Say
get the government
it's
involved.
government. No,
You'll get the government involved
That's
and we
not
illegally come onto your land and start doing our own thing.
But it's not.
So it is
it's
our
not-
land.
It's our land.
So it
It's
is
not
our
your
land.
land.
Do you own the, well,
We
yeah,
own the
some of
land.
it's your land.
We are
Make the
on
permit.
But what about you guys coming onto our land illegally and growing palm oil?
Okay, so that yes.
We
I know
just,
that. Yes, please.
as a community, we need to make sure that what you're saying for like, you want to be, you have the responsibility to provide for the economy and grow and profit, but also not destroy. But we also need to make sure that that's not just the fancy words at the bottom of your page, like it always is. So that's why we're so hard and why we're a little mean, because we need to make sure that we're not ruining our home and the place that we live and our kids will live and their kids will live.
I think that's fair.
All right. Has everyone responded to their responsibilities? Okay, let's talk about our returns. What do we gain from participating in this?
What are your
Yeah.
Yes, my own response is to carry out robust independent research, seek for funding, partner with international organizations and non-governmental organizations in order to adopt best management practices that aligns with global practices, okay? I think that's what academics and researchers' responsibilities should be on there. Can they make money? Yes, they can. They can actually apply for grants, and as part of those grants, there are little stipends here and there, but it's more of a training opportunities, okay? So part of the responsibility would also be to train students, to train interns, to improve their capacity. Thank you for reminding me. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about our returns. What do we get from managing these resources? Let's start with the community. What do we get?
In return for managing the resources correctly, we're gonna get access to our water source and higher water security. We're gonna get just kind of like an insurance that our land isn't all gonna be destroyed for palm oil, which helps our ecosystems function better. And then higher biodiversity of animals just helps make for a better just ecological system, and also animals have a lot of cultural impact in our community, and so we want to protect those animals like the tigers and the what other animals were we thinking? The orangutans, yeah, all of them.
Any questions regarding their returns? Yes, please.
What exactly is y'all's plan for management? You said management, but how are you gonna do that? Like,
Group collective management, so working with the government to ensure protections of the forest, working with the government to create an enforcement plan for those protections. Which might look something like a civilian climate corps paired with the government.
Yes, Leah.
I was also gonna say, work with the NGOs to make sure the government is helping us out, because they'll have a lot of pull with the government.
I think that was the response I was looking for. Yes. Okay. At the moment, which stakeholder group is preventing you from getting those benefits?
It's typically them.
Do you have any questions for them?
The government.
Do you have any questions to them, or should we keep this moving? Yes, go ahead.
Can you guys stop giving them permits to take all the stuff there?
We have to develop something.
Yes, the second largest economy in the world.
Get back to you on that.
You can do
All right.
solar or something else.
The baton has been passed to you guys. So what are your returns? What are your benefits?
I mean, we're the government, so that is a benefit within itself, I would say.
Economic return.
Yeah.
Yes.
From resource extraction.
Yeah. Economic returns are the biggest ones for the government. That's what you get from levies, what you get from taxes, from
Development,
fines.
I mean, we're getting roads, stuff like that. Yeah, they might be in the wrong spot, but at least there's roads being built.
If you call that roads.
Yes.
Kura, you want to say something? You're good.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say economic gain for like the resource management and stuff, and because it's civil services.
That's spot on. Because it cuts across the board. Whatever the government benefits, everyone is supposed to benefit from it, right? The benefits that the government receives supposed to trickle down to every one of us, even if we don't see it technically. Yes. What are your returns?
I think that we would like to get out of it just more sustainable management of the land. We're kind of here just to make sure that that goal is like kept in mind. And then I think I don't know. I think most groups should want to work with us just because we are kind of that liaison between everybody. So we're
Do we all want to work with them?
Yeah.
Yes. So go ahead. No questions on that.
like yeah, we're just here to help out and make sure that like relationships are maintained and operating as they should. So I think the main return for that is just a well-functioning co-management program.
Yes. Yes, for academics, I think our returns would be publications, lots of publications. As a result of studying all of the biodiversity there, we'll get publications. We'll also get some funding from our funding agency, most likely the private corporations, as well as the government in order to get the research done. That funding would be return. The other returns that we are also going to do will be community capacity development for the community members. When we develop their capacity, knife sharpen knife, or diamond sharpen diamond, as sharpened as the academics improve their capacity, we also improve our capacity. Then part of the publications that we're going to have will be also protocols. Protocols for managing those biodiversity on that particular site. Then I agree that we are going to be partnering with the NGO more than any other group for this particular conversation. What about you guys? What about your returns?
Natural resources,
Okay.
the palm water.
Okay. Basically, more money
More money. I think we
from
also-
this. Yes, please.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like,
Thank you, Abby.
I think we also see, like, potentially, like, the potential for community development. I don't know how much is happening, but I think with the money that we're making, it's feasible to develop the community. And I think there's also, like, a potential return to, like, sway or have some political power in government.
I like the last one better. Okay? Okay, let's try to wrap things up and have a brief conversation before the end of the class. What about relationships? Quickly, private corporations, what relationship do you need in order to manage these resources effectively?
Sorry, what
I understand. Welcome back. So we're talking about what relationships you need, your group need, in order to manage this biodiversity effectively.
I mean, it would be nice to, like, figure out a good relationship with the local community. I think we could both benefit from, like, not fighting each other. That'd be beneficial. And I think also develop a relationship with, like, how we're making that product and the species that we're affecting, and develop, like, a better understanding of the relationship between the natural side of things as well.
Okay. Other stakeholder group, do we want that relationship with them?
No.
Not really.
Alright, community members, let me hear from you. What kind of relationships are you looking for?
I mean, I think we definitely want to keep building our relationship with the government so we can help kind of sway them to stop giving these deals to private organizations. And I think that our relationship with the NGOs can help us do that with the government. So I think if we build this relationship first, then as a partnership, as long as you guys are okay with that, we can use that relationship to help kind of sway the government.
That's very, very spot on. Okay, academics and researchers would also want to join the mix. Okay, so we can have more of a triangle relationship between the NGO, academics, and the community members, and that way we can leave the government and their favorite child stranded. Okay, government, what's your relationship like?
Obviously we need to maintain like our relationships with the industrial sector, but we need to also engage like the conservation leaders and the researchers in order to discuss like better solutions that kind of help everybody.
Okay, now we are at that point where we need to decide what would a win-win scenario look like for your stakeholder group. As we wrap up this analysis, this forum, what would a win-win scenario look like? What would be the biggest takeaway for your stakeholder group? This is what my stakeholder group would get at the end of the day if things are done like this. Let's start with the NGO this time around. What would a win-win scenario look like for you guys?
Having like support from the government to actually enforce law, like making these laws and then helping us enforce them. But then also like letting the community be a part of what laws they want to be in place. And us helping them be more like empowered to manage the resources and create livelihoods for them. Yeah.
Anyone want to add anything to that? Yes.
I would add that I think we want, we also want the private corporations to be able to make their own money and, do whatever they want to do within the land, because for it to be a true, win-win, we want everyone to get what they want, but we just want it to be done as sustainably as possible.
Yes. For academics and researchers, a win-win scenario would be when everyone comes together to manage Sumatra biodiversity. No one particular stakeholder has more rights over this biodiversity. It is a shared resource more than any other natural resource that we talked about in class. Please take note of these two natural resources, biodiversity as well as water. Managing these two would require an holistic, all hands on the deck approach. For land, you can't say, okay, well, give it to the community. But for these other ones that I just mentioned, it is pretty difficult because if you give all the responsibility to one particular stakeholders, they might not have the capacity to do it all by themselves, right? What are your relationships like? Sorry, we've moved on that. It's a win-win scenario we're asking about. What would a win-win scenario look like for you?
Like I said, we get to operate a business in the community and the government. Don't just hound us too hard. We work with non-GNOs to, I guess, in an ideal world, figure out a balance between, the environment, biodiversity, and our ability to not just deplete what we need to use.
That's good. All right, community?
Can I take this one?
Sure.
Okay. So we get main control over the forest, the government grants Sumatra's sovereignty, takes a lot off their plate. They're dealing with a lot less stress on a day-to-day basis because we now have sovereignty and controlling the island. private corporation, like you guys probably like, I don't know, in Wall Street somewhere, just signing papers, you know, you're kind of disconnected from nature, you're feeling kind of depressed. You guys realize it's not all about money. You move to Sumatra, we all party in the jungle. NGOs help us set up like a cool biodiversity, like monitoring and like ecotourism sector. And then everyone's super happy and chill and we all have a big party.
For all the stakeholder forums that we've had in class, I think this is the easiest one to keep everyone happy. Yes, please.
I just wanna add, like, I think if we're gonna lose some of our, whatever, rights in the land,
Listen up, please,
I
guys.
do think like some regulation also needs to be put onto like the community as well. I think, because like, I know y'all are out there coaching and stuff too, like it's not just us. And so I think if
Due
we're
to
gonna hold us accountable.
systemic poverty.
So maybe we gotta like help build your community and like, I don't know, maybe get out of some poverty so that y'all don't have to.
Get out of it.
Yeah.
Any
Well,
questions?
Are you done?
Now, we've had 4 multi-stakeholder forums in class. At this point, I want to ask if there are skills that are still unclear that you want us to talk about as a group and provide some clarity. Yes, please.
What you said that this is out of all the stakeholder ones, this is the easiest one to make everybody happy. How do we make them happy, but also everybody be happy? What would that look like? Because I don't know what that would look like.
What I said, it is the easiest to make them happy. If you pay attention carefully to the other stakeholder forums we've had in class, the question of illegal stakeholders wasn't there. But this time around, during the podcast, they made mention of several illegal activities. So if you don't make them happy, those illegal activities would amplify. In other forums we've had in class, just like you guys, I was very, very quick to kick them to the curb. But this time around, if you do that, you only make them come up with more aggressive ways to assess those lands, to assess those biodiversity. And that's a win-win scenario that we want, we're not gonna get it. One way to do that, bring them to the table. What are those illegal activities you're doing? How can we make them formal? Okay, now we're gonna make them formal in this location. Don't go to this location. Now we know what you're doing, you're paying tax, you're paying levies, you're also contributing to community development. So, keep them closer. That's also a lesson that I want us to take out of this. I know we are living in a capitalist society, so at every opportunity we get, we want to resist every signs of capitalist behaviors, and that may have been what we attributed to this group. But be careful, in the real world, the influence this group shields is too enormous to keep them out. We basically need them. In all of the stakeholder processes that I've been involved in, we are basically petting them, pampering them to keep them in the conversation. Because when you lose them, you've also lost their powers. Believe it or not, they control the government. Our government is controlled with money. Who has the largest money out of all of the stakeholder group? They are the ones. So even if it seems the easiest route to keep them out, the easiest way, bring them closer to you, find a way to benefit from such exploitative activities. Those companies, whether we like it or not, would be set up. Those farms, those plantations would eventually be set up. But we want to see them, because of our SD degree, we want to see them done correctly as managers of these resources. So one way to do that is not to push them away. Try to keep them happy, because their money would be what would power the development that you want. Their money is what would pay for the research that the academics would do. Without their money, the NGO would go defunct. So one constant feature in all of the stakeholder forums that we had in class is us bashing these guys. It is that way outside, But be very, very careful because you need what they have. When you take them out of the mix, you also lose what they have. Okay? Then one thing again I must add is that before any of these actual stakeholder forums, please go prepared. As a manager, the stakes are higher for you. You might be embarrassed by just a very simple question. It will knock you off. And the entire time you'll be there, you'll just be looking at the ceiling, confused about what you're doing there. Go in prepared, but also go in humble. Because you're coming from an educated part. They'll think, oh, that manager went to college, they have some fancy degree, so everyone is coming to look for how to bring you down. So go in prepared and be very, very humble so that you don't get knocked around the room. You might leave the room, as I've done one time, sweating all over your body and still not getting what you came in to get. But if you go in prepared, you know, okay, I just want the government to be able to work with the community in this case. How am I going to do that? That's the only thing I want to achieve. So while I'm in that forum, I'm involved in every other thing, but as soon as it comes to my acts, I amplify it. That's how it is done in the real world. Don't be saying, I'm too little to get a management position, I'm too little to get a consultancy position. That's fallacy. That's fallacy. I wrote a recommendation check today for one of our students that graduated over a year ago. She's got a management position as of yesterday. So it happens. Don't look down on yourself. Be prepared. That's my final summary, okay? Now we have only one class left until the end of the semester. Some of you are smiling. We'll have a class on Tuesday to present an overview of mineral resources. I would have actually said, okay, let's have this as our last class, but it's not enough. Mineral resources are very valuable, although all the approaches out there, none of them are sustainable. So, but I'd rather talk about it with you guys in class, so you guys will know what's happening out there, than just end the semester. So we'll meet on Tuesday, and that will be our last class. So for those of you that are planning to travel for the Thanksgiving, you're coming back to Boone, it's not because of me. Okay, if you're coming back to Boone, probably because you have other final exams, but our class activity ends on, I think, the 25th. Yeah, it should be the 25th of November. Please, all your works should be submitted. When you come to class on Tuesday, I'll pass a piece of paper around to collect what grade you think you deserve from this class. Okay? We did this in the first half, but we're also going to do it at the end of the semester. I'm telling you guys now because I want it to be a reflective activity. I don't want you to say, okay, you deserve an A. I'll give you that A, but can you defend that A that I've given you? It is a personal question for you to reflect on. I want to treat you guys as a manager that you guys want to be, but also step up to the plate and show that, yeah, I can do things intentionally and reflectively. So come to class prepared to tell me what you deserve to get. Yes, your finals, I'm going to grade it.